about the information. So it sounds like this thing's starting to get recorded as of right now, but I think I'll probably keep pCloud as is, and I probably won't change anything. So you should have access to that stuff. I think you should have access indefinitely. Just don't give it away. That's about the best answer I got for that. So as of tonight, we're going to start over, in essence, with the cultural property. I already mentioned that there are a few documents in here. One of my more favorite documents, but it's really a long document. It's called An Examination of Archaeological Ethics and the Repatriation Movement Respecting Cultural Property. I mean, the title alone should be of interest, but it's a long article by John Allen Cohen. But again, I think that the title is really telling, and it would be probably a very, very good one to read after tonight. But it's An Examination of Archaeological Ethics and the Repatriation Movement Respecting Cultural Property. Again, it's a long article, but it's well worth it, and especially after tonight. After tonight, I did send you a PDF that I put together today that is based upon Article 1, only Article 1 of the Convention on the Means of Prohibiting and Preventing the Illicit Import, Export, and Transfer of Ownership of Cultural Property. What I want to do tonight is actually, it's kind of fun because it's taking that first paragraph, the main terms that they're focusing on. What is Article 1? It says, for the purpose of this convention, the term cultural property means property which, on religious or secular grounds, is specifically designated by each state as being of importance for archaeology, prehistory, history, literature, art, and science, and which belong to the following categories. And then they list all these different categories. And, of course, that's what I really wanted to cover earlier this week. But I'm going to go over those words specifically: archaeology, prehistory, history, literature, art, and science. Because if you can keep this in your head, if you can understand that birth process, I'm talking about the product that comes out of mother, which are basically threefold. Remember, baby's one, and then the afterbirth is two, but the afterbirth has subdivisions, one being the fetal tissue and two being the maternal tissue. So there's basically three products. Now, when you do a proper claim on your existence, that would be baby claiming or man claiming through a Minnesota Rule 220 his life. And so what you're doing is you're pulling all your DNA into one location. In other words, the fetal tissue that is left behind cannot be claimed by anybody else, because by you claiming your DNA, you're claiming the entirety. So now, even though there is fetal tissue in the afterbirth material, legally they can't use that because you've already made a claim upon it. And also it is part of your existence. So what does that leave? That leaves the maternal afterbirth. And that's the property that turns out to be cultural property. That's the stuff that gets left behind. That's the stuff that falls to the floor. That's the stuff that ends up on the fee or within the fee of the county, the state, and the republic, so to speak. In other words, it's the horse poop, like I said. So here we go. I'm gonna start with, and just go in order. I'm going to start with the definition of archaeology, and I'm going to really expound on this stuff. For those of you that have already looked ahead on this, there's 17 pages. 17 pages. And you're going to see how they all intertwine, but just remember, as long as you're thinking along the lines, as long as you know that this afterbirth material has two different components, and if you don't claim your share of it, then your share goes into the cultural property. It goes into the cultural property. So you become part of the cultural property. I had a a thread on Facebook today where I was basically saying the public and the private aspects are not what we should be talking about. The problem with the public versus the private is the fact that the private man, by not claiming all of his existence, becomes part of the public. And when you become part of the public, then the public has a claim upon part of your life. And that's the whole idea, is that you're not of the public. None of us living beings are of the public. Biblically, it would be what? In the world, but not of the world. So we're in the public as living beings, but we are not of the public. We are not property within the public to be claimed by anybody, including your neighbor. So here we go, Article 1. This will be pretty fun. The definition of archaeology: the scientific study of material remains. Obviously, we know the remains, just like in a funeral home or in a cemetery, that's what gets buried in the ground. It goes on to say, such as fossil, I have 1, relics, 2, artifacts, and 3, monuments. It says, of past human life and activities. Of past human life. So it says the scientific study of material remains, such as fossil relics, artifacts, and monuments of past human life and activities. Remember right now, the I am, or the concept of the present, where we all exist. I am exists only in the present. But look how they word this. It says, of past human life and activities. So it doesn't have to be 10,000 years ago. In my case, it can be 56 years ago on September 19th, 1960 at 3:50 a.m. That was a past human life and activity, the birth process and another existence. 2, remains of the culture of a people. They call it antiquities. Isn't it funny how many movies come out of Hollywood that deal with the concept of a relic? Relic. An object esteemed and venerated because of association with a saint or a martyr. B, souvenir or memento. Look at that. The whole idea of, or the whole story of the Christ is about what? A saint and possibly a martyr. So it says an object esteemed and venerated because of association with a saint or a martyr. Now earlier, probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was talking about a buddy of mine who asked his mother, who I believe might have been from Ireland or something like that, but asked his mother, she was an old world woman, about the birth process, and she says, oh yeah, she remembers at the hospital that they wrapped the afterbirth material in a cloth. And I started thinking about that, the concept of the swaddling cloth or the swaddling clothes, or the idea of a relic, a religious relic at that point, because I already knew that the maternal afterbirth is considered what? A virgin birth, an immaculate conception, a fatherless child, just like the Christ. So the maternal afterbirth is such a thing. It is considered that saint. Remember, this is a pure. Mother gives birth to pure DNA, not sullied, not adulterated with a male, with a biological male. In fact, again, I try not to do this, but I do it quite often. I'm going to go to the word adulteration or adultery. What does it say in Blacks about adultery or adulteration? Most of the time, what do we think of? We obviously think of people cheating on other people in marriages and stuff like that. But look what adulteration is. What adulteration is: the act of corrupting or debasing, the act of mixing something impure or spurious with something pure or genuine. or an inferior article with a superior one of the same kind. Think about that. A superior article mixed with an inferior article. So think about the superior, the firstborn genuine baby, being mixed with the inferior afterbirth fetal tissue. That would be an adultery or an adulteration. So if I choose to live through that other character, that left behind material, I'm an adulterer. I'm mixing things that don't belong together. What's another? Adulterator, a corrupter. In the civil law, a forger or counterfeiter. By the way, I didn't plan on this, but that word, counterfeiter or forger, is going to come up tonight. So an adulterator is a corrupter, and in the civil law, an adulterator is a forger or a counterfeiter. So again, relic, an object esteemed and venerated because of association with a saint or a martyr. We're down to 2 relics, plural. Remains, a corpse. A relic is a corpse. 3, a survivor or remnant left after decay, disintegration, or disappearance. Hey, when the firstborn baby gets wrapped up and taken home with mom and dad, does firstborn baby disappear from that site? Does it disappear from the birth process at that? Yeah, of course it does. So for firstborn disappears from the scene. Remnant, left after decay, disintegration. By the way, what about the zygote? Would you say that when through the cell division, you could look at division as sort of a disintegration where part of it sloughs off or part of it splits away, like the chorion does? 4, a trace of some past or outmoded practice, custom, or belief. A relic, a trace of some past or outmoded practice, custom, or belief. So I highlighted corpse, remnant, and belief. Corpse, a human or animal body, whether living or dead. Now remember what I'm reading from here, people. I'm reading right out of that convention, the paperwork from the convention on cultural property. Corpse, archaic, is a human or animal body, whether living or dead. A corpse can be living or dead. 2, a dead body, especially a human being, the remains of something discarded or defunct. The corpses of rusting cars is an example, but it says the remains of something discarded. The remains, the remainder. I mean, is not the waste, the word waste itself. Does mother discard the other material, just overwhelmed with joy for baby, but as far as that other material, that waste material, is that not discarded? Thrown away. It's a relic. I always think, it's funny, is when my buddy told me about being wrapped in that cloth, I was actually thinking along the lines of a shroud, like the Shroud of Turin. And I was thinking, I can imagine that this cloth is now soaked in the blood of the afterbirth, or that the Lamb of God, so to speak, the virgin born. Remnant, a usually small part, member, or trace remaining. That sounds exactly like the chorion. A small surviving group is a remnant. An unsold or unused end of piece goods. A usually small part, member or trace. Member, I think we went over that in the first week. Belief. So back, it says a trace of some past or outmoded practice, custom, or belief. Do you think that the Druids and all these old customs, all these old burials, all these old initiations that are from the past, these ancient rituals, are they not all relics? The ritual itself. Belief. A state or habit of mind in which trust or confidence is placed in some person or thing. Again, a state or habit of mind in which trust or confidence is placed in some person or thing. You know, that's a word that we all think we know what it means, the word habit. Let's just take a look what habit is in Blacks real quick. Habit. Look at this. Habit. A disposition or condition of the body or mind acquired by custom or a usual repetition of the same act or function. The customary conduct to pursue which one has acquired a tendency from frequent repetition of the same acts. A course of behavior of a person regularly repeated in like circumstances. Evidence of a specific habit may be admissible to show specific conduct or acts within the sphere of a developed habit. Habitant. In French and Canadian law, a resident, tenant, a settler. I'm looking for habitual, customary, usual, of the nature of a habit. Synonyms are customary, common, regular, while its antonyms are unusual, unwanted, extraordinary, and rare. This is key. So look what it says here. Habitual, customary, usual in the nature of a habit. Synonyms are customary, common, regular, while its antonyms are unusual, unwanted, extraordinary, and rare. So rare is the other side of habit or habitual. Something that is rare is not habitual. Rare is going to come up tonight. Habitation, place of abode, a dwelling place, a residence. In the civil law, the right of a person to live in the house of another without prejudice to the property. It differed from a usufruct in this that the usufructuary might apply the house to any purpose as a store or manufactory, whereas the party having a right of habitation could only use it for the residence of himself and family. Wow. In other words, if you were living someplace, you couldn't use it for profit. That's an interesting concept to me. In other words, if I called my physical body the temple of God, if the title to the temple of God is Curtis Richard Kallenbach, they're saying that the usufructuary might apply the house to any purpose as a store or manufactory. That's a usufruct. I can use my body for profit. But it says, whereas the party having the right of habitation could only use it for the residence of himself and family. In other words, I can't use my physical body for profit. Only for habitation. I'm just explaining the difference between a usufructuary and the fact that something could be called habitation. Anyway, so back to belief, page 1 still. A state or habit of mind, a state of mind or habit of mind in which trust or confidence is placed in some person or thing. confidence or trust in a person or thing. Just remember, no trust can exist in a sole ownership. That's key. If my property falls into the hands or under the definition of cultural property, if my property, if a piece of me falls into the definition or falls under the definition of cultural property, I hope you're starting to see the problem here. Because if it's cultural property, it's going to fall into a trust. If it's my property solely, then there is no trust and there's no other potential claimants. If it's in cultural property, then it's claimed by all of those within that culture. All have a claim. Everybody within the culture. 2, something that is accepted, considered to be true, or held as an opinion. This is all still part of belief. Something believed. They have an example, an individual's religious or political beliefs. It says especially a tenant or body of tenants held by a group. A tenant. What is a tenant? Well, let's see. A tenant, I'm just seeing if it's in black tonight. Tenant. That doesn't look like. No, it doesn't have tenant. Oh, wait a minute. What is this tenant? Nope. Well, it does. It has tenere, which is Latin. It says in a civil law, to hold fast, to have in possession, to retain. In relation to the doctrine of possession, this term expresses merely the fact of manual detention or corporal possession of any object without involving the question of title. I think that's the root. 3, conviction of the truth of some statement or the reality of some being or phenomena, especially when based on examination of evidence. We're still on belief here. Belief is a conviction of the truth of some statement or the reality of some being or phenomena, especially when based on examination of evidence. So what's the second one here? It says science is the scientific study of material remains. That was relics. Let's go to artifact. Artifact. A usually simple object, such as a tool or ornament, showing human workmanship or modification as distinguished from a natural object. An object remaining from a particular period. See, this is something that should be getting to become a little obvious. It says an object remaining from a particular period. This is an artifact, an object remaining from a particular period. That identifies exactly the left behind material. An object remaining, the left behind, afterbirth, it's left behind, nobody's claiming it, an object remaining from a particular period. What is particular? It's something less than the whole. It's a part, a parcel. Let's just look at it real quick. Particular. Particular, relating to a part or portion of anything. Let's go over that again. An object remaining from a particular period. Particular, relating to a part or portion of anything. Separate, sole, single, individual. Specific, local, comprising a part only. Partial in extent, not universal. Opposed to general. See, that's, again, hopefully, we're starting to see that this material left behind, they're qualifying it. Even in this cultural property document, they're making it possible to make a claim upon this material. An object remaining from a particular period. That's another weird thought. From an object remaining from a particular period. The word period could mean a different calendar. Remember that the Roman Catholic Church, in 1582, Pope Gregory decided he wanted a new timeline, a new calendar. Now, the excuse was he wanted it to be more accurate as it related to the stars and the true moment in time. Well, the Gregorian calendar, as it stands right now, is 13 days behind the Julian calendar. So think of the calendar as being a different period, a different time frame, a different frame of reference. And in fact, it's a different timeline. Let's see what the word period is. Particular period. Okay, here it is, period. Any point, space, or division of time. Any point, space, or division of time. An object remaining from a particular period. Any point, space, or division of time. B, something characteristic of or resulting from a particular human institution, period, trend, or individual. Something characteristic of or resulting from a particular human institution, period, trend, or individual is an artifact. In other words, it's a piece of something left behind. C, something or someone arising from or associated with an earlier time, especially when regarded as no longer appropriate, relevant, or important. Something or someone arising from or associated with an earlier time, especially when regarded as no longer appropriate, relevant, or important. Is my relationship to the missing piece, is that from, I'm associated with it obviously because it's my DNA, but what about the maternal afterbirth? Remember that while I was in the womb, I couldn't get any closer to the maternal afterbirth than I was. It was right up against me. Now think of the maternal afterbirth. something or someone arising from or associated with an earlier time, especially when regarded as no longer appropriate, relevant, or important. No longer. At the time, it was extremely important. At the time, my life depended on it. My life depended on it. Back hurts, just throw it away. Artifact 2. A product of artificial character, due usually to extraneous agency. A product of artificial character, due usually to extraneous agency. Artifact is a product of artificial character. I sometimes think, there's people out there that are pretty good photographers. And every once in a while, somebody will show me a picture of this orb on a photograph. And a photographer that knows his stuff or her stuff will say, oh, yeah, that orb is a product of this. It's an artifact. It's not a spirit captured on the film. I don't know. But I'm just saying that, there are all kinds of artifacts from light refraction and things like that as it hits the lens that some hardcore photographers know about, that I don't know about. Heck, I've seen pictures with so many orbs in it, and these people are claiming it was a ghost house or some, they were actually on a ghost hunt and they found all these spirits, all these orbs in their pictures. I don't know. But a photographer would call it artifact. In other words, a product of artificial character. It says a defect in an image. A defect in an image that appears as a result of the technology and methods used to create and process the image. How about this? A defect in the image. Biblically, the image, the concept of the reflection, the other character that's born, the legal fiction is an image. And it's awfully defective on multiple levels. It's not tangible. It has no substance. But it says a product of artificial character. So let's go to artificial. Humanly contrived, often on a natural model. Often on a natural model. Man-made, an artificial limb, artificial diamonds. That, again, it goes back to the idea of Michelangelo when he takes that big block of granite or something and carves out the David. It's contrived using a natural model, David himself. 2, having existence. This is artificial, by the way. Having existence in legal, economic, or political theory, caused or produced by a human, and especially social or political agency. 3, lacking in natural or spontaneous quality, an artificial smile and artificial excitement. B, imitation, a sham. Imitation. I mean, we often we do battle in these courtrooms with the concept of representation. But this is a sham. So look at this. Humanly contrived, often on a natural model. I mean, the genuine baby is a natural model for all subsequent creation. So, but 3 says lacking in natural or spontaneous quality, an artificial smile, blah, blah, blah. Imitation or sham. I highlighted the word sham. Sham. Number 4 is based on differential. That's a little bit. 5 is obsolete, but it says 5 says artful or cunning. Artificial is artful or cunning. I've never looked up cunning. I wonder if cunning is actually in Black's Law, just for the heck of it. Let's see. I'd be shocked if it was, though. Cunning. How about page? Nope. Doesn't look like it's in here. Nope. Cunning is not in Black's Law. Why don't I do this real quick then? Let me see what it says in Webster's online. Cunning is, I mean, we think we know what it means. I've never looked it up. That's why it's interesting to me. Cunning, having or showing skill in achieving one's ends by deceit or evasion. Cunning, having or showing skill in achieving one's ends by deceit or evasion. Noun is skill in achieving one's ends by deceit. So it's all about deception. What does Merriam-Webster says? Cunning. A crafty, look at this. Dexterous or crafty in the use of special resources or in attaining an end. Trickery, characterized by wiliness and trickery. But look at that, special resources, a skill or knowledge. The word knowledge is going to pop up everywhere, people, because remember, knowledge is information. Information is that birth record. So it's, I mean, if you just put in that, if you say crafty in the use of crafty in the use of a birth record in attaining an end. Okay, so I highlighted the word sham. Let's see what sham says. 1, a trick that deludes, a hoax. Cheap falseness, hypocrisy. An ornamental covering, a pillow sham. 4, an imitation or counterfeit, purporting to be genuine. There it is right there. An imitation or counterfeit. Purporting to be genuine. Remember, genuine is baby. Just like the artist Michelangelo, the genuine article is David, the model. The original is the first copy. The original is what Michelangelo carved. His piece of art is the original. And then, of course, any subsequent copies are called copies. So it's original, so it's genuine, number 1, original, number 2, and copy, number 3. So it says an imitation or counterfeit purporting to be genuine. An imitation or counterfeit. Okay, so counterfeit. Made in imitation of something else with intent to deceive. Something forged, that we saw that word earlier today, forged. Insincere, feigned. Imitation, it's okay. Counterfeit. Now this, I took this out of Black's because I knew that counterfeit was a very, very specific concept. And again, think about somebody taking a piece of DNA and trying to pass it off as you. As you. In other words, they're saying, oh yeah, this guy's dead. I mean, it's a decedent. Here's the DNA, here's the proof. Or somebody that's being passed off as your relative, like a long-lost relative. Counterfeit, Black's Law. To forge. To copy or imitate without authority or right. How about this? What if you don't have any proof of who you are? What if you don't have evidence of who you are? What if the birth record is the only possible evidence of your existence and it's in somebody else's possession? And you can't prove who you are. Who's the counterfeit now? I mean, this is the case of identity theft, and basically you're stealing your own identity because you don't have a way to prove it's you. It's identity theft, but unfortunately you're the thief. They're the ones that are protecting this other's property. You're pretending to be yourself because you can't prove that you are who you say you are. It says without authority. Remember also that the word illegal basically means without authority. That also means that if you have the authority, it's not illegal. But it goes on, so a counterfeit says to forge, to copy, or imitate without authority or right, and with a view to deceive or defraud by passing the copy or thing forged for that which is original or genuine. Look at that. They even say original or genuine. Isn't that interesting that they're letting the word original stand? Genuine is the actual. Original is called the first copy. Goes on to say most commonly applied to the fraudulent and criminal imitation of money or securities. You know what? That signature that you're signing, every time you sign that name, it can be considered a forgery. Until you have evidence of who you are, every time you sign a name, your name, it could be looked at as a forgery. And that's a security. Remember, your name is that John Hancock, that is the security. That's the promise to pay. Counterfeit in common parlance signifies fabrication of false image or representation. Counterfeiting an instrument means falsely making it, and in its broadest sense means making a copy without authority or right. Isn't that interesting? So authority, I mean, you can be granted authority, which makes it not illegal, but what about a right? You, as the sole owner, it's your right. But it says without authority or right, and with view to deceive or defraud by passing copy as original or genuine. Back to definition of archaeology, it says the scientific study of material remains such as fossil relics, artifacts, and monuments of past human life and activities. Monument. A burial vault. A sepulcher. I believe that when they take this waste material, that they basically bury it or put it in a vault. They might be looking at it as a deposit, like a bank deposit, but it goes into a vault that's underground. No different than if you were to, put the remains of your grandparents or whatever in a mausoleum, in a wall of a mausoleum. But underground is underground. A burial vault. I also believe that the way we are living our lives, it's almost like being buried alive. Buried alive, because our remains, our DNA is actually underground in a space called a birth. It's really there. It's on deposit in a birth, and you have the certificates for that space. You have the title or the deed to a space called a birth. And that space is where the DNA is. I should look something else up too real quick, because the word birth on a ship or a vessel is a place to hang a hammock for sleeping. So for people that are using a birth certificate or actually in their birth, they're considered asleep. Let's see what birth says real quick. Birth definition. See there, the word birth, but I spelled it B-E-R-T-H, by the way. It says a ship's allotted place at a wharf or dock. 2, a fixed bed or bunk on a ship, train, or other means of transport. Of a passenger ship, a berth is called, that provide a sleeping place for someone. That's the verb, or a moor. A ship is in its allotted place. So a ship in its place, or you on the ship in your sleeping compartment. Again, I believe that when you're using this character, it's no different than being asleep. So most of us ultimately are asleep. We sleep away our entire lives by playing the role of this character that they created. We're always asleep. Monument, a burial vault, a sepulcher. A monument, a written legal document or record, a treatise. Three, a lasting evidence, reminder, or example of someone or something notable or great. A distinguished person, a memorial stone or a building erected in remembrance of a person or event, like a headstone in a cemetery. A headstone in a cemetery is a memorial. And what are those headstones for? They're for those that are missing or dead. People that are MIA, missing in action, or dead. They're to help us remember those that have gone before us and that are gone. A memorial stone or a building erected in remembrance of a person or event. What about that event? What about the birth? What about when you arrive here? September 19th, 1960, 3:50 a.m. was an event. There was a time when I came out of her. And I arrived here. And the 3 witnesses actually signed a piece of paper that said, yes, this did happen. It's a happening. It did happen. But if I don't have access to that document, if I don't have any way to tie myself to that happening, did it happen? Is it hearsay coming out of my mouth without the evidence? Of course it is. I can't remember being born. I need the piece of paper that ties me to that event. That's the only way I can evidence even my location. Number 4, an identifying mark, portent or sign, a carved statue, effigy, a boundary or position marker as a stone. How about that? How about identifying my land, right here, Kallenbach, comma, Curtis Richard. There's my land, identified by that stone. It's a stone marker that identifies my ground. How about 7, a national monument? 8 is a written tribute. A national monument caught my eye. A national monument. Why? Because the first thing I thought of about a national monument when I was looking at the earlier words, like a burial vault and sepulcher and all these other sort of decedent concepts, national monument, it says a place of historic, scenic, or scientific interest set aside for preservation, usually by presidential proclamation. Well, wasn't the 1933 inaugural address when FDR said today is a day of national consecration? Was that not a presidential proclamation? Creating a national or a consecrated nation? I mean, now we're all the way back to the what is the word here I'm looking for? Relic, an object esteemed or venerated because of association with a saint or martyr. I mean, we're all the way back there again at relic, a place of historic, scenic, or scientific interest set aside for preservation, usually by presidential proclamation. In 1930, I wrote, see FDR's 1933 inaugural address, national consecration. What does the word consecrate mean? Dedicated to a sacred purpose. What does sacred mean? Dedicated or set apart. For the service or worship of a deity. It says a tree sacred to the gods. A tree. Sacred to the gods. Has anybody ever seen the tree of life? Has anybody ever seen a placenta? The tree of life is on the placenta. B, devoted exclusively to one service or use as a person or purpose, a fund sacred to charity. Devoted exclusively to a service or use. Sacred. Again, if the temple, if your physical body is considered the temple of the gods or the house of the holy, the church itself, your physical existence, the land of your soul, I'm talking about your DNA. Devoted exclusively to one service or use. Maybe, and this is kind of what I've come, the conclusion I've come to, is that the maternal afterbirth, the pure maternal, immaculately conceived afterbirth is to be used specifically for, as consecrated grounds for that, and only that position. Curtis Richard Kallenbach is not to be used in commerce because it's the title to that consecrated ground. I'm not supposed to be using that consecrated ground, i.e. Curtis Richard Kallenbach, for profit. Of course, all of us do it because we don't know any better, because it is all about deception, like I said earlier. Sacred, a dedicated or set apart, dedicated or set apart, separate from. I mean, I have a piece of ground that has been set apart from me, but also, I also have the other maternal afterbirth, which is not a piece of me, but it was with me upon my arrival. Heck, it even identifies the very vessel that I was traveling in, because it's my mother's DNA. It is, in fact, the vessel that I was traveling in. It's the ship. It's the mother ship. 2, worthy of religious veneration. It's holy. To consecrate is to be holy. Entitled to reverence and respect. Of or relating to religion, not secular or profane. Archaic means accursed. Unassailable, inviolable, highly valued, and important. By the way, has anybody ever looked up the word call, C-A-U-L? Like you're calling, or what is a call? It's part of the birth. A call definition. I'm looking this up because this is such a strange thing. It says a call, C-A-U-L, the amniotic membrane enclosing a fetus is called a call, C-A-U-L. It's also a woman's close and fitting indoor headdress or hairnet. I'm going to go to something a little strange here. A caul or cowl, C-O-W-L, cowl. It is part of the zygote. And in some cases, it wraps the baby, especially around the shoulders and head, like a mask. Call Wikipedia. I'm looking it up right now. It says that the end-call birth, not to be confused with the call birth, occurs when an infant is born inside the entire amniotic sac. And they say that a call birth, or a call, C-A-U-L, it's rare. 1 in about 80,000 births. There's a really interesting thing here. I'm trying to find it right now about the call, the concept of the call. History. Here it is. In medieval times, the appearance of a call on a newborn baby was seen as a sign of good luck because it was so rare. It was considered an omen that the child was destined for greatness. Gathering the call onto paper was considered an important tradition at childbirth. The midwife would rub a sheet of paper across the baby's head and face, pressing the material of the call into the paper. The call would then be presented to the mother to be kept as an heirloom. Heirloom. The call. Now we're talking about the amnion, or the fetal afterbirth itself is the call. Here's my favorite part of this, by the way. It says folklore developed suggesting that possession of a baby's call. Remember, the fetal tissue is the call. The fetal afterbirth tissue is the call. C-A-U-L. It says folklore developed suggesting the possession of the baby's call would give its bearer good luck and protect that person from death by drowning. You can't drown when you possess the call. It goes on to say calls were therefore highly prized by sailors. Medieval women would often sold these calls to sailors for large sums of money. A call was regarded as a valuable talisman. If you were living, and you might be, by the way, in a maritime republic, and all of these old medieval happenings were still occurring, and the call, i.e. fetal afterbirth, existed still to this day, isn't it possible that their prize, the call itself, or the fetal tissue itself, is what's on deposit for the sailors within the maritime republic? It says, calls were thereby highly prized by sailors. Medieval women often sold these calls to sailors for large sums of money. Because you can't drown, supposedly, because you were born in the water, born underwater. This was supposed to keep you alive. It would keep you above the water. You couldn't drown. Hell, that almost sounds like being able to walk in the water or walk on top of the water, where the whole sea, or the commercial seas, were not dangerous to you if you had possession of the call, which is your fetal afterbirth tissue. Is it possible they're still using that call for the exact same ideas in a maritime republic, which is, you know that it exists because every time you go into a courtroom, every flag is admiralty. Nothing but the commercial seas here. Sorry, got off track as usual. By the way, if you read the history on the call, again, that's C-A-U-L, you're going to find historical, people of high, great notoriety. It's even said that I believe that Jesus was born with a call, which is what gave him his position, which was, the extraordinary happenings in his life was all based upon the call. I'm starting to think that maybe Jesus, is somehow related, to that afterbirth. That call is the fetal tissue. That's what's so crazy about this. It is the fetal tissue left behind. Anyway, sacred. Isn't that interesting? So in 1933, when everything's going commercial, and FDR says today's the day of national consecration. So it's almost like they created this other thing for the sailors, the commercial sailors, the seamen. Sacred. Okay. We're done with definition of archaeology, relics, artifacts, and monuments. Now we're going to the definition of prehistory. I'll try to move a little quicker here. The study of prehistoric humankind. 2, a history of the antecedents of an event, situation, or thing. That's what we're going to focus on. A history of the antecedents of an event, situation, or thing. And remember, these are all within cultural property. And if I can clarify something, if you can claim it as your own, it is not going to fall within cultural property. But if you can't claim it as your own, more than likely there's going to be a cultural claim upon it. It's an either-or situation for you. 3, a prehistoric period of human evolution. Prehistoric, before history. What does that mean? Before your history? In other words, before my history was any time, any moment before September 19th, 1960 at 3:50 a.m. That's before my history. Antecedent. A substantive word, phrase, or clause whose denotation is referred to by a pronoun, such as John. A word or phrase replaced by a substitute. So that man can be replaced by Kurt. It says a word or phrase replaced by a substitute. Curtis Richard Kallenbach, or maybe Kallenbach, Curtis Richard, has now replaced by Curtis Richard Kallenbach, a substitute. A word or phrase. Any succession of words, by the way, is considered a phrase. So Curtis Richard Kallenbach is a phrase. It's also known as a coin or a token, a coined phrase. Number 2, a preceding event, condition, or cause. That's an antecedent. A preceding event, condition, or cause. I would say the very first cause is the zygote. The preceding event, the splitting of the chorion away from the zygote. Antecedents plural, the significant events, conditions, and traits of one's earlier life. Earlier, anything before today, anything before this moment. 3, predecessor. A model or stimulus for later developments. A model for later developments. Ancestors, parents. 4, the conditional element in a proposition. The conditional element in a proposition. If A, then B. If A, then B. If not A, then not B. When you start to think about this, the order of events and all the possibilities that they're claiming to have happened around the time you arrived, again, I can think of 5 different things that exist because of the birth event. Genuine baby. The call, which is the chorion or the fetal tissue after birth. The maternal afterbirth, that's 3. The title, that's 4. And the registration of a state vessel, that's 5. The conditional element in a proposition, if A, then B. If I make the claim at the very beginning, at the zygote, then B, everything subsequent is mine. If I don't make the claim, if I am not the holder of that position, if I'm missing, presumed dead, then it falls to the secondary position, which would be who? Well, there's another piece out there called the zygote, or of the zygote, which is it? The chorion. That's my brother. That's my missing other. Not really, but that's what they say through the concept of born alive. Predecessor. We're still on the antecedent here. One that precedes, especially one that precedes a person who has previously occupied a position or office to which another has succeeded. Ancestor. Events. A history of antecedents of an event, situation, or thing. This is the definition of prehistory. The final outcome or determination of a legal action is an event. Postulated outcome, condition, or eventuality. Something that happens, an occurrence. By the way, this is the birth process. Noteworthy happening. Hey, somebody just arrived here. Maybe we should write this down. A social occasion or activity. An adverse or damaging medical occurrence. An adverse or damaging medical occurrence. Is not the afterbirth a defective birth product? Is it not defective? An adverse or damaging medical occurrence. I'm born as a genuine baby, perfect. I'm sure many of you are arguing at that point right now. But it says an adverse or damaging medical occurrence. The afterbirth position is defective. 3, any of the contests in a program of sports. 4, this is unbelievable. This is an event. 4, the fundamental entity of observed physical reality represented by a point designated by 3 coordinates of space, of place, and 1 of time in the space-time continuum postulated by the theory of relativity. 3 coordinates of place, there's your 3-dimension right there, your 3-dimensional existence. 3 coordinates of place and 1 of time. September 19th, 1960, it's called the what? The alpha moment, my arrival, the moment that I begin in this realm as a 3-dimensional being. Probably closer to the zygote, because once that fertilized ovum starts to divide, then I'm in 3 dimensions. I exist 3-dimensionally. And that says, right here it says, 3 coordinates of place. That's all 3 dimensions. That's the physical realm. And 1 of time. Well, once the clock started at the beginning at the zygote, I mean, there is time in there, because now you have time from the 9 months from that period to the arrival through the womb. So time could begin in the womb, which it does, but then on the clock, according to the paper realm, it begins at the arrival at the scene in the hospital. So they're going to date it September 19th, 1960 at 3:50 a.m. So now I have 3 coordinates. I have a physical body, physical substance, and the time. I now have the time recorded as well. That's the event, and it's recorded as a birth event. 2, situation. The way in which something is placed in relation to its surroundings. I mean, right now, again, I'm sitting down here by the fireplace. I'm situated here. But there is the afterbirth material that is situated there, wherever there may be. We're not in the same place. So our situations are different. I'm the living, it is not. It is the decedent. 3a, position or place of employment. Position or place of employment. 2, post. Job, position in life, status. So what I did is I actually highlighted the word site, post, and status in situation. Position with respect to conditions and circumstances. Relative position or combination of circumstances at a certain moment. There's your court right there. Relative position or combination of circumstances at a certain moment. A critical, trying, or unusual state of affairs. Remember, the word affair means business. A problem, a particular or striking complex of affairs at a stage in the action of a narrative, a story. Okay. Situation, I highlighted 3 terms: site, post, and status. Site, the spatial location of an actual or planned structure or set of structures. It says as a building, town, or monument. A space of ground occupied or to be occupied by a building. The place, scene, or point of an occurrence or event, like the hospital. Ground, the bottom of a body of water. Grounds, sediment. 2, a basis for belief, action, or argument. 3, a surrounding area, background, material that serves as a substratum. Material that serves as a substratum. 4, the surface of a planet, an area used for particular purpose. Ground, an area used for a particular purpose. That could be a birth. The place where your DNA is being stored could be an area used for a particular purpose. The area around and belonging to a house. My God, I've been talking about real estate for the last 4 weeks. The area around and belonging to a house. Ground. When the house is attached to that ground, it's called real estate. When the house is not attached to that ground, it's called personal property or chattel property. If it's not attached, look at that, at the area around and belonging to a house. An area to be won or defended as if in a battle. There's Article 38 of the Lieber Code. Assuming a man has not fled. An area of knowledge or special interest. Knowledge is information. Information is the birth record. It says an area of knowledge or special interest. Special interest. I don't really have any interest in that. Are you an interested party? Hell no, I'm not. Bull. You are an interested party because the birth record identifies DNA that's a direct match to you unless you claim it through Minnesota Rule 220. 5, soil, earth. 6, 7, 8. Number 2 under 7, from the very beginning, the ground. From the very beginning, it's called the ground. Ground. From the very beginning. If that's not the zygote, I don't know. Post. A piece fixed firmly in an upright position. 2, a pole or stake set up to mark or indicate something. I highlighted stake. We're getting to that real quick. Stake. A post to which a person is bound for execution by burning. Execution by burning at the stake. Those are for witches. Something that is staked for gain or loss, a prize in a contest. An interest or share in an undertaking or enterprise. An interest or share in an undertaking or enterprise. I highlighted enterprise. Finally, at the back here it says at issue. Something stake is at issue. So I highlighted stake and I highlighted enterprise. Now we're down at enterprise. A project or undertaking that is especially difficult, complicated, or risky. 3, a unit of economic organization or activity. A business organization is an enterprise. That sounds like your toy boat. A business organization. It's all economics. It's back to economics. Either it's your industrial property or it's somebody else's cultural property, but it's all economics. Organization. The act or process of organizing or of being organized. The condition or manner of being organized, a group, association or society is an organization. How about an administrative or functional structure? And of course, the third word that I had highlighted back there, under situation, I had site, post, and status. So the third word is status, so let's go to status. A position or rank in relation to others. Status. Isn't everybody trying to correct their status? There's nothing wrong with your status. It's always there. It's just that it's not attached to you. It's attached to the wrong thing, or it's attached to something that you have never claimed, like your life. Remember, the living man has this status. A decedent does not. Status, a position or rank in relation to others. Relative rank in a hierarchy or prestige, high prestige. 2, the condition of a person or thing in the eyes of the law. I underline that. It says the condition of a person or thing in the eyes of the law. 3, status is a state. A state. Status is a state or condition with respect to circumstances. Oh, Kurt, that's not what they mean. State? Come on, man. State. A mode or condition of being. A mode or condition of being. What about that document I read about 2 weeks ago where they were talking about vested or contingent interests, and they were talking about a person in being, meaning somebody that has actually claimed that position. And now it's just like Seneca Bide said in 1666, when a man proves life, he's revested with his title. Now he has a person in being, and he's vested in his own life. He's got all his stuff back. Two, a condition or stage in the physical being of something. The physical being of something. A state, a condition or stage in the physical being of something. Social position. Formal dignity. Formal dignity. Isn't that what the Summa Theologica says Father offers the offspring? The formal dignity? Isn't that the status? In other words, if you're not tied to a father or the last name or the father's name, you lack formal dignity, which means you don't have that state of existence, which means you don't have status. So everybody running from that name will never have standing, because standing and status are the same. Let me do this. I shouldn't, because I'll probably run out of time, but I'm going to go to standing, because everybody says, I don't have any standing in court. Yeah, you don't, because you don't have status, because you're not tied to a father, because you're a bastard. Status. Status. Okay, status. There it is right there, page 1264. Status. Standing. Semicolon. So the very first word is standing. State or condition, social position. The legal relation of individual to rest of community. The rights, duties, capacities, and incapacities which determine a person to a given class. A legal personal relationship, not temporary in its nature, nor terminable at the mere will of the parties. Mere, remember, means mother. with which third persons and state are concerned. And then it goes on to say, while term implies relation, it is not a mere relation, which means it is not the maternal afterbirth title called Curtis Richard Kallenbach. Curtis Richard Kallenbach is the mere relation. It's the mother relation. It's not the name of the father's child. Status, state. 5. It says the members or representatives of the governing classes assembled in a legislative body. State. 5a, a politically organized body of people usually occupying a definite territory. The political organization of such a body of people. This is all the state. This is called state. A government or politically organized society having a particular character. The operations or concerns of the government of a country. How about 7? One of the constituent units of a nation having a federal government. And 8, the territory of a state. And then finally, I said definition of prehistory are antecedents of an event, situation, or thing. So now we're at thing. Thing, a matter of concern. Matter. 2, deed, act, accomplishment. 3, a separate and distinct individual quality, fact, idea, or usually an entity. A separate is a thing. Concrete entity as distinguished from its appearance. Isn't that interesting how they get you to appearing for it? Which means it's not the same as a concrete entity, an entity of substance. It says the concrete entity as distinguished from its appearance. So you can see something, but you can't touch it. A spatial entity. There's your 3 places in space. A 3-dimensional living substantial existence. Look, it says an inanimate object distinguished from a living being. Four, things, possessions, effects. Whatever may be possessed or owned or be the object of a right. That this is the thing. An article of clothing. Goes on to say, detailed point, a spoken or written observation or point. A written point is a thing. An idea, notion, an idea. You know what do they call it? A perfect idea, an immaculate conception. Perfect is immaculate, conception is idea. So an immaculate conception is a perfect idea. It says idea, notion. It says a piece of news or information is a thing. Information is a thing. Remember, this is all falling under cultural property, so that information that's provided as by the informant, i.e. mother, information. It says 8, individual. So I highlighted information and individual. So what is information? By the way, these are all coming out of Webster's Online, unless otherwise designated. Information, the communication or reception of knowledge or intelligence. Remember the word communication? What does communication mean? Real quick, let me see. I want to get this done tonight. Communication. I'm in blacks right now. Communication. You would think that I would be fast. Communication. Look at this. Communications on page 253. Information given. the sharing of knowledge by one with another, conference, consultation, or bargaining, preparatory to making a contract. Intercourse is communication. Connection. Number 2 over here in information, it says knowledge obtained from investigation, study, or instruction. It says the attribute inherent in and communicated by one or two or more alternative sequences or arrangements of something as nucleotides in DNA. Really? So think about they're saying that the nucleotides in the DNA is considered information. You know what's really strange about this? What is knowledge? It says knowledge obtained from investigation, the communication or reception of knowledge. I mean, we all know a very, very profane word is spelled F-U-C-K. What does it mean? For unlawful carnal knowledge. In other words, an intimate knowledge of somebody. Knowledge of somebody. Can you imagine having a piece of paper that identifies the very DNA, the very essence of your existence? Is there any greater knowledge than that? Is there any greater knowledge than the very DNA that makes you? And if somebody has a claim upon that, if they have the original document that says, no, I have your DNA in my possession, can it get any more F-U-C-K'd up than that? Number 3, the act of informing against a person. Isn't that what Mom's doing by signing the very document calling as informant? Creating an accusation? Informing is accusing. And number 4, it says it says it right here, a formal accusation of a crime made by a prosecuting officer as distinguished from an indictment presented by a grand jury. Isn't it funny? Where did all the grand juries go? Why don't we have any? Because we don't need them. All the accusations are made by that information. The birth record itself is an accusation. We don't need grand juries anymore. Everything's done by this information provided by mother. The other highlighted word was individual. This is an interesting word to me. It says obsolete is inseparable. So an individual says inseparable. 2, of, relating to, or distinctively associated with an individual. Being an individual or existing as an individual, indivisible whole. So to be an individual is to be unable to be divided. An individual is undividable. It says individual, intended for one person. As an individual, there is no trust. Existing as a distinct entity, separate. This is such an interesting word to me. If I am an individual as I sit here, complete, I have nothing, no piece of me that is separate from me other than that chorion that's sitting out there. But what I'm getting at is I am an individual completely intact. As the sole owner of my life, there is no trust. But if there's a piece of me that was put into a public pool, you can see the problem. Now that public pool, which is part of what? Cultural property claim, all of a sudden my DNA is subject to anybody's claim. Having marked individually as an individual style. So here, where are we? Page 10. I'm still on individual, I think. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, no, I was done. Individual is the last of that. Now I'm in the definition of history. History. Look at this. It says a tale, a story. A story. Now I'm right off the bat, I'm thinking story, the story of a country, the story of a county, the story of a government, the story of all these things, and then I think of 1790, the Copyright Act of 1790. Well, who's laying claim to all those stories as cultural property? copyrighted cultural property. It goes on to say, I'm back at definition of history, a chronological record of significant events. Is it significant that you showed up? Is it significant to you that there's a record of your existence? Are you significant, is the question, often including an explanation of their causes. A treatise presenting systematically related natural phenomena. An account of a patient's medical background is a history. A patient's medical background. D, an established record. 3, a branch of knowledge that records and explains past events. Does that not describe exactly the birth record? A branch of knowledge. A branch. Events that form the subject matter of history, of a history. They say of a history. Events of the past. One that is finished or done. Previous treatment, handling, or experience. Experience is a really good word, by the way. I'm hoping I get into that. The word story. An account of incidents or events. A statement regarding the facts pertinent to a situation in question. And again, remember, I am here and a piece of me is there. We're in two different situations. 5, lie or falsehood. 6, legend or romance. 7, news article or broadcast. What about that birth announcement? The one that goes into the newspaper and is published. A news article or broadcast. 8, matter or situation. This is all story. The other one I had was established. To institute as a law permanently by enactment or agreement. To make firm or stable. To introduce and cause to grow and multiply. Multiply. To bring into existence. This is establish. I mean, think about this. Are you established? Can you prove that you're established, that you exist? The word is found. Bring about effect. To put on a firm basis, to set up, establish. To put into a favorable position. To gain full recognition or acceptance of. 6, to make a church a national or state institution. Is that not what FDR did in 1933 when he established a consecrated nation by proclamation? Record. An established record was what I had highlighted. To set down in writing. To furnish written evidence. To furnish written evidence. So the record itself of your arrival is written evidence. Without it, you don't exist. It goes on to say to deposit an authentic official copy of a record, a deed. To state for or as if for the record. To register permanently by mechanical means. Indicate, read. 2, to give evidence of. A record is to give evidence of. To cause, to be registered on something, such as in reproducible form. You remember that every copy is subsequent to the original. Once that original is down, they can make multiple copies from the original, which is what they're doing. I think they call them derivatives. In fact, I think that's even in here somewhere. So evidence is the next word. What is evidence? An outward sign. Please give me a sign. Something that furnishes proof is evidence. Something legally submitted to a tribunal to ascertain the truth of the matter. Ascertain the truth of the matter. One who bears witness is evidence. one who voluntarily confesses a crime and testifies for the prosecution against his accomplice. You know what? Remember, I said this the other night. You cannot confess to a repugnancy. If the birth record creates a repugnancy, you cannot confess to such a thing. It's not possible. Knowledge. That was the last word in that. It says cognizance. The fact or condition of knowing something with familiarity gained through experience or association. I'm gonna run over to experience real quick because that's a really important word. Experience. Experience. Okay, where is it? Maybe I don't know how to spell it. I don't. Experience. Oh, there it is. A state, page 519. A state, extent, or duration of being engaged in a particular study or work. Here it is. The real life as contrasted with the ideal or imaginary. So experience is the real life as contrasted with the ideal or imaginary. Experience is about real. It's reality. It says a word implying skill, facility, and practical wisdom gained by personal knowledge, feeling, and action, and also the course or process by which one attains knowledge or wisdom. Experience. I'm back at the fact or condition of being aware of something. This is knowledge. The range of one's information or understanding. The circumstance or condition of apprehending truth or fact through reasoning. It's called cognition. D, the fact or condition of having information or being learned. Number 3, sexual intercourse is called knowledge. Now we're right back to F-U-C-K. For unlawful carnal knowledge. 4, the sum of what is known. The sum of what is known. The body of truth, information and principles acquired by humankind. I think we might get done here. Now we're in the new definition of literature. Remember, this is all under cultural property. Literary culture. The production of literary work, especially as an occupation. No, the production of literary work, especially as an occupation. It's interesting because the word occupy means to possess as well. I mean, if I don't possess the person, if I don't have possession of the person, am I nobody? Exactly. Etymology of the word nobody is what? It's about the person. Culture. I highlighted. What is culture? Heck, the whole thing I'm talking about tonight is culture. It says, the act of developing the intellectual and moral faculties, especially by education. 3, expert care and training. 4, enlightenment and excellence of taste acquired by intellectual and aesthetic training. Acquaintance with and taste in the fine arts, humanities, and broad aspects of science, which I've been describing as well, as distinguished from vocational or technical skills. Wow, this is some of my favorite stuff here. The integrated pattern of human knowledge, belief, and behavior that depends upon the capacity for learning and transmitting knowledge to succeeding generations. Look at this. B, the customary beliefs. This is culture, people. The customary beliefs, social forms, and material traits of a racial, religious, or social group. The characteristic features of everyday existence as diversions or way of life shared by people in a place or time. Place or time. It says the set of shared attitudes. Shared. Culture is sharing. The set of shared attitudes, values, goals, and practices that characterizes an institution or organization. Goes on to say a set of values, conventions. We talked about that earlier. Conventions are social practices associated with a particular field activity or social, societal characteristic. Particular. It's always particular. It's always about the afterbirth. It's always about the piece that's not attached to the whole. It's always particular. The act or process of cultivating living material. Cultivating living material. Also, it says a product of such cultivation. In other words, when I see that, the act or process of cultivating living material, I actually think of putting the DNA in one giant public pool, one giant Frankenstein, where all the DNA is mixed together and it's just one giant Frankenstein, the beast, for the biblical. Particular, of or relating to or being a single person or thing, of or relating to or concerned with details, where the devil lives, by the way. Distinctive among other examples or cases of the same general category. Here it is, number 5. Denoting an individual member or subclass. Individual member or subclass. Something, remember, individual separated off something, and member. Think about the mass of cells that are supposed to be part of my body as my DNA that has been separated or severed from me as a member. It's been separated. Denoting an individual member or subclass. That's particular. Subject. One that is placed under authority or control. Subject. One subject to a monarch and governed by the monarch. One who lives in the territory of, enjoys the protection of, and owes allegiance to a sovereign power or state. Remember, it could be state of mind, too. We already saw that earlier tonight. That of which a quality, attribute, and relation may be affirmed. An affirmation. Or in which it may inhere. Substratum. Material or essential substance. Now we're back to DNA, people. The mind, ego, or agent of whatever sort that sustains or assumes the form of thought or consciousness, a department of knowledge or learning, the motive, cause, one that is acted on, an individual whose reactions or responses are studied. Here it is. A dead body is a subject for anatomical study or dissection. Something represented or represented or indicated in a work of art. Remember, I found the definition for child in a Roman Catholic dictionary. A child in that dictionary was referred to as Christian art. Something represented. Something is affirmed or denied. An entity denoted. A word or word group denoting that of which something is predicated. Essence. This is a giant word when it comes to DNA. The permanent as contrasted with the accidental element of being. The individual, real, or ultimate nature of the thing, especially as opposed to its existence. The properties or attributes by means of which something can be placed in its proper class or identified as being what it is. The essence of something. Something that exists, the entity itself, a volatile substance or constituent, a constituent or derivative possessing the special quality. Derivative. Let's go down to derivative real quick. A word formed from another word or base. A word formed from another word or base. Something derived. Go down to underline. It says a contract, number 5. A contract or security that derives its value from that of an underlying asset. An underlying asset. Do you understand? 3, an occupation requiring knowledge or skill. We're still, I'm sorry, we're done with that. We're on definition of art. This is it. This is probably the last, we're probably going to finish with art and science. Yeah, we are. So, definition of art. Skill acquired by experience. There's the word experience again. Skill acquired by experience. And what is experience? The real life as contrasted with the ideal or imaginary. Ideal or imaginary. Communism is an ideal. Imaginary is Santa Claus. Skill is acquired by experience, study, or observation. In other words, reality, people. Observable reality, not this wishy-washy ideas. But I think it's this way. It is or it isn't. I mean, when I got tased, I had an idea that something was wrong, but really it wasn't. I was wrong. I was wrong. My perception was off. I had to learn the truth of the matter. A branch of learning, one of the humanities, liberal arts, learning, scholarship. Now I'm on page 14. 3, an occupation requiring knowledge. An occupation. Occupation, remember, means possession. Or right now I'm sitting next to the fireplace. I'm occupying a space. I'm occupying a space. Occupancy. Possession. I possess this space. Archaic, a skillful plan. I highlighted plan. I also put experience down here. I read experience from blacks, but I'm going to read experience from Webster's now. A direct observation of or participation in events as a basis of knowledge. Participation in events. How about participating in your own birth? If you're not there, if you didn't participate, if you can't make that claim, you're not here. It says the fact or state of having been affected by or gained knowledge through direct observation or participation. Listen, you didn't observe your own birth. You did not observe it. But you did participate in it. So you experienced your birth, but you didn't observe it because you don't have any conscious, there's no way to make that claim. We don't have the capacity of understanding to have the words to describe that event. So we have to go on 3 witnesses that signed the document, and that's the only way, that's our only evidence. 2, practical knowledge, skill, or practice derived from direct observation of or participation in events or in a particular activity. 3, the conscious events that make up an individual life. Conscious events. The events that make up the conscious past of a community or nation or humankind generally. Something personally encountered, undergone, or lived through. This is experience. The act or process of directly perceiving events or reality. Then I had highlighted plan up there. What is plan? Basically, it says a method for achieving an end. Often a customary method of doing something, a procedure. We've heard that word in court before. What is a procedure? A particular way of accomplishing something. So in other words, they have to use the particular. They have to use the afterbirth to achieve their outcome, their desired outcome. The afterbirth has to be unclaimed because unclaimed, it is a decedent, and then of course it's probated, and then the administrative process takes over. That's how they get their outcome. So now we're at science. Definition of science. A state of knowing. Knowledge as distinguished from ignorance or misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. Do you understand the charges? That would be a misunderstanding. It would be a misunderstanding. Do you understand the charges? That is a misunderstanding. So it says, science, the state of knowing, knowledge is distinguished from ignorance or misunderstanding. So if you understand the charges, you do not know. You can't understand the charges and have knowledge. They are blinding us with science. It says the department of systemized knowledge as an object of study. B, something that may be studied or learned like systemized knowledge. Page 15, knowledge. or a system of knowledge covering general truths or the operation of general laws, especially as obtained and tested through scientific methods. B, such knowledge or a system of knowledge concerned with the physical world and its phenomena. 4, a system of method reconciling, there it is, a system or method reconciling practical ends. In other words, like the start and the end, the alpha and the omega, practical ends with scientific laws. To reconcile, to restore. Okay, here we go. This is extremely important stuff here. So to reconcile, it says a system or method reconciling practical ends, the beginning and the end. The beginning is your arrival, and the end is today. Today's the end. It's always the end. We never are beyond today. Today's the end of our life, right now. This is the end of our life right now. So, reconcile. To restore to friendship. Boy, I believe I've done that because they even called me friend. It says to restore to friendship or harmony, reconciling the factions. B, settle, resolve. 2, to make consistent or congruous. 3, to cause to submit to or accept something unpleasant. 4, to check. 5, to account for. Okay, well, I highlighted restore, harmony, settle, resolve, and congruous. I believe that's all we have left tonight. So let's get through that. Restore. Look at this. To restore is to reconcile, but to restore, it says to give back, to return, to put or bring back into existence or use. Remember that the word abuse, A-B-U-S-E, means to not use. We've been abusing our ship of state. We've been abusing it because we are not using it. To restore is to put back or bring back into existence or use. 3, to bring back or put back into a former or original state. To renew. 4, to put again in possession of something. To put again in possession of something. Harmony. Go down to 3, pleasing arrangement of parts. Congruence. Agreement. Accord. I believe that the letter sent by the Department of Justice for the federal government says according to. So they actually use the word accord in the letter, as well as the word friendship. So reconciliation seems like what that letter was for me. I reconciled a position. Accord, when, tranquility, a period of relative. 4, this is all under harmony. Look at this. 4, an interweaving of different accounts into a single narrative. A systematic arrangement of parallel literary passages. A systematic arrangement of parallel literary passages. Wow, that sounds like an alternate universe to me, where you never quite, there's something that's mirror imaging you all the way throughout your life, something that looks just like you off to your right or off to your left. Actually, it's off to your left because the image would be to your left. Settle, a place, to place so as to stay, to establish a residence, to furnish with inhabitants. I think it went over inhabitants. To colonize, to make quiet or orderly, to fix or resolve conclusively, to establish or secure permanently, to conclude. What's really weird is I never knew this before, but the word settle means to impregnate or to conceive. To settle in an animal means to conceive. And then finally, I think we're here. Where is this? Resolve? Yep, resolve, congruous, and then the last word is belong. Resolve. The word that I'm looking at is to deal with successfully, to clear up, to find an answer, to make clear and or understandable, to find a math. Here it is, to split up into 2 or more components, especially in assigned directions. To resolve is to split up into 2 or more components, especially in assigned directions. To me, when I think of the chorion and the maternal afterbirth, those two have to be separated. They have to not be put together or adulterated or mixed. They need to be separated because they're two different claimants. I claim the one side, and my mother's property goes over there. If I mix those two positions, it's a lie. It's fraud. I can't claim my mother's property. It's not mine to claim. That's resolve. Finally, congruous. Being in agreement, harmony, or correspondence. Conforming to the circumstances or requirements of a situation. Conforming to the circumstances or requirements of a situation. Appropriate. 2, marked or enhanced by harmonious agreement among constituent elements. Again, if I'm in the right place, if I'm in my right place, I have all my rights. If I'm situated, if I've made a proper claim, I'm in the right place. I cannot, the jurisdiction is absolutely fine with me when I'm in the right place. When I'm being seen or viewed as the afterbirth, I'm in the wrong situation, the wrong place, and thus the wrong jurisdiction. That's the place of the dead man. That's the place of the probate court. That's the District of Columbia. And finally, the very first page, it says, I was dealing, oh, there it is. Back to the Convention on the Means of Prohibiting. Remember, Article 1, it says, it says, for the purpose of this convention, the term cultural property means property which, on religious or secular grounds, is specifically designated by each state as being of importance for archaeology, we covered that, prehistory, we covered that, history, literature, art, or science, we covered those, and which belongs to the following categories. And all I wanted to do is finish up the word belongs, because that's all of the stuff I went over tonight is being tied to their claim, to their idea of cultural property. So I wanted the word belong. I wanted to finish with the word belong. So what does belong mean? In Webster's, it says to be suitable. Well, that means that it can be brought into court. Appropriate or advantageous. B, to be in a proper situation. 2A, to be the property of a person or thing. This is to belong. So they're saying all this stuff belongs under one of these headings as cultural property. Remember, the only thing you have to distinguish is what's yours. Once you make your claim on your industrial property, you don't care what anybody else is doing with their property, be it cultural or private. You don't care. All you have to do is distinguish yours, and everything is good. So here we go. To be the property of a person or thing. B, to be attached or bound by birth, allegiance, or dependency. It says or. To be attached by or bound by birth, allegiance, or dependency. That's 3 different positions. And then it goes on to say as a member of a club, organization, or set. 3, to be an attribute, part, adjunct, or function of a person or thing. And finally, to be properly classified. And on that note, we got through Article 1 to the level I was hoping. And seriously, tomorrow I'm going to see if I can do the same thing with these individual positions, because some of these words are so amazing in here. We already covered rare. We heard that tonight. What is rare? But there's so many good things in this Article 1. That's where it's all at. Just like Article 1 of the industrial property, everything is in Article 1. So anyway, till tomorrow night, see you guys. And like I said earlier tonight, stick around if you want to talk amongst yourselves. It will not be recorded, but the line should be open. That is true, right, Brittany?
That's right.